Forced to close. 3 words that cost me $1.3 million in 12 months. I thought I knew everything about building wealth until one crisis wiped out everything that I'd spent 20 years building. Here's what nobody tells you about staying rich. Most people think the hard part is making money. Wrong. The hard part is not losing it to invisible habits that drain your wealth every single day. Over 20 years, I scaled 3 multi-million-dollar franchises in retail, fitness, and education. I have made millions and lost millions. And I'm about to show you the 7 habits that separate people who get rich from people who stay rich. Here's something you can do right now. Open up your banking app, look at last month's spending, and add up everything you spent to look successful. Restaurants to impress, clothes for status, unused subscriptions, add it up. That number is probably bigger than what you saved last month. That's your first wake-up call. I learned this the hard way when I was tracking every dollar during my business rebuild. The average person spends $400 a month on things that make them look rich. Make them look rich, but keep them broke. If you took that $400 and invested at 7% return, you would have over $400,000 in 30 years. That's the difference between looking wealthy and being wealthy. But here's the real problem most people don't see coming. In 3 minutes, I'll show you the $100 rule that can become about $50,000 when you stick with it. Most people have a backwards money system. Their paycheck lands and they start paying everyone else first. The landlord, the credit card, Netflix, Amazon. Then they hope something's left for themselves. That's the poor person's habit. Putting yourself last every single month. Rich people flip this completely. They pay themselves first even when it hurts. Here's the exact system I use. The minute money hits my account, 20% goes to savings. Not after bills, not after expenses. First, before everything else gets touched. When I was rebuilding after the gym closure, this felt impossible, but I forced myself to do it anyway. Started with just $50 a month, then $100, then more. Within 2 years, I had 6 months of expenses saved. That's what gave me the courage to take bigger risks. You cannot take control what you don't measure. My 7-Eleven was doing about $1.7 million in revenue a year. I felt great about the sales, but money was leaking and I didn't see it. Looking at the numbers once a month hit the problem. Then each week, I put sales next to payroll and saw the schedule didn't match traffic. We were staffing quite rush hours with 5 extra part-time spots. About 30 hours we didn't need, burning around $1,400 a month. We cut those shifts, sales held steady, and that $16,800 a year stayed in the business. That's your runway. I track every dollar that comes in and every dollar that goes out. Not just big bills, small leaks that add up to thousands every year. That daily coffee, the subscription you forgot about, the impulse buys that feel small but drain your future. Here's what changed everything for me. I realized wealthy people don't just save money. They make their money work. Instead of letting cash sit in a bank account doing nothing, I put it into things that grow. Real estate, index funds, my own business. At one point, I was saving and investing more than 70% of what I earned. But saving money is just step one. Because even if you save every dollar, you can still stay broke if you're burning cash to impress other people. One of the fastest ways to stay broke is trying to look rich before you are. Designer clothes you can afford. Car payments that eat your check. Fancy dinners for an Instagram post. People trade tomorrow's money for a weekend image. This $100 rule that I have can grow to about $50,000. Before any purchases over $100, I wait 24 hours and ask myself one question. Am I buying this for me or to impress others? If it's for others, I don't buy it. Where does that $100 go? First, pay down high interest debt. Stop the bleed. Then put it in short-term treasuries or US saving bonds so it earns while you plan. After a few months, debt is down, cash is up, and the urge to show off fades. In my 20s, I thought spending more would make people take me seriously. I was wrong. The people you're trying to impress aren't even paying attention. And the ones who are, they're usually broke too, playing the same game. When I was running my Planet Fitness, I saw this everywhere. Employees would show up in designer clothes but couldn't afford lunch. They looked successful, but their bank accounts were empty. Meanwhile, I was driving a reliable car and wearing simple clothes, and I was building wealth they couldn't see. Real wealth doesn't come from putting on a show. Every dollar you're not wasting on status becomes a dollar working for your future. In assets, in opportunities, in wealth that grows while you sleep. But here's what most people miss. Even if you save money and avoid status spending, you can still stay broke if you're only trading hours for dollars. Most people chase the biggest paycheck they can find, even if the job teaches them nothing. At first, it feels smart. More money now, but here's the trap. A paycheck without skill is a ceiling. You lock yourself into today's income because you never built tomorrow's power. When I started out, I had chances to take easier jobs that paid more. I picked the hard ones that forced me to learn. I learned fast that skill grows faster than salary, such as negotiation, leadership, selling an idea. These skills do not expire. Stack them and you don't just earn more, you become someone who can build more. But if skills are the engine, ownership is the vehicle. If skill open doors, ownership builds wealth while you sleep. In 4 minutes, I'll show you the focus method that turned stacked skills into real ownership and took me from broke to multi-million in 10 years. Real wealth comes from equity, a piece of something that grows while you sleep. You can start your own business or earn equity by becoming impossible to ignore. The fastest way to lose equity is asking for it too soon. The fastest way to gain it, make yourself valuable first. In my 20s, at a small consulting company, I chose slightly lower salary at a 1% stake instead of higher paycheck with 0%. 2 years later, when part of the business sold, my share paid about $33,000, money that helped me open a business at 25. When I managed Planet Fitness with 18,000 members, over $5 million a year across locations, here's what I learned. Systems beat hustle. I stopped learning random stuff just in case and learned only what I could use right now, and it had to show results fast. Do that and each skill opens bigger doors. Your equity works while you sleep. You stop trading hours for dollars. Quick question. What's your biggest skill gap? Marketing, operations, or leadership? Comment below. But here's the problem. You can build all the skills and equity you want. But if you burn out your body and energy, none of it matters. Most people try to manage time instead of energy. Here's something you can do right now. Think about yesterday. List everything you did. Next to each thing, write H for high energy, M for medium, or L for low energy. If most of your day is in M or L's, you're not managing energy. You're bleeding it. Successful people spend 70% of their time in high energy activities. The other 30%, they rest or delegate. They treat their body like the engine that powers everything else. I never drank alcohol because of my beliefs. I didn't get into complicated relationships early either. At the time, I thought these were just moral choices. But here's what I didn't realize. Those choices gave me an advantage. While friends were losing nights and mornings to partying and drama, I woke up clear-headed and ready to work. Opening my Goddard school cost $1.5 million upfront and needed around $100,000 a month to survive. That kind of overhead makes one slow month hurt. Many owners hit burnout by year 2. I didn't. I ran simple systems: sleep, exercise, a weekly scorecard, tight schedules, backup help. So my energy grew, not fade. Those systems come from thinking like a franchisor, not a hustler. If that clicks, watch my franchise mindset video next. One shift to make any business more fundable, sellable, and scalable. Link in description and up there. Speaking of focus, in my early 20s, distractions were harder to find. No Instagram, no TikTok, just a Nokia with a snake. That simplicity let me focus, and by 25, I was already running my first business. Protecting energy isn't about avoiding bad habits. It's about building routine that makes you stronger. I guarded like cash. No distraction, no draining people, no zero return work. But energy without direction is chaos. In the next 3 minutes, I'll show you my 10-year focus filter. The simple test I used to ignore 90% of shiny distractions. That's why the next habit can make or break everything. The focus method that took me from broke to multi-million in 10 years. People don't fail just because they're lazy. They fail because they scatter their energy. They chase shiny things and end up exhausted with nothing to show. It's like trying to start a fire with a magnifying glass but moving it every 3 seconds. The sun is powerful, but without a focus, you never get a spark. When I started my first business at 25, opportunities came fast. Side deals, random partnerships, people saying, let's collaborate. Saying yes felt smart, but every yes to the wrong thing pull me from foundation. So I trained myself to say no, cut distractions, and filter advice. I asked one question: has this person built what I want? If not, why let them guide me? One of the best decisions I have ever made was picking one thing and committing 10 years to it. Not dabbling, not bouncing around. 10 years of focus. That's what wealthy people do. Here's the filter. One path, one product, one way to get customers, one customer growth for 10 years. Do this and you stop chasing. You start compounding. If you're still watching, you're in the top 20%. Ready for the numbers? For me, 18 months of scattered opportunities produce $0 in durable cash flow. The next 36 months of single focus produced $42,000 in stable revenue and a team I could step away from. That's how you move from trying business to building something that lasts. Focus means stepping outside your comfort zone because comfort kills progress. Early on, I was the accountant, marketer, and janitor all in one. But growth only happens when you build systems and delegate. My job wasn't to do anything. It was to create systems that let others succeed. When you focus like this, breakthroughs happen. You gain clarity. You're not pulled in 100 directions. You're pulled forward in one. But here's the trap. When the focus works so well, that ego creeps in and it can destroy everything you have built. I learned this lesson the hardest way possible. For COVID, my Planet Fitness gyms were crushing it. Memberships, strong. Revenue, climbing. Thought I had cracked the code. Then March 2020 hit. Overnight, every location shut down. Not for a week, not for a month, for an entire year. At 40-year-old, success taught me that it's not just about me. It's not just my grind or my systems. Because no matter how disciplined you are, storms will come. The pandemic humbled me. It forced me to realize that wealth built on ego is fragile. The wealth built on humility is resilience. So I reprogramming how I thought. Instead of clinging to fear, I trained myself to see opportunities. Focus on what I could control and practice gratitude, even when things were uncertain. Gratitude turned fear into fuel. But there's a trap. When things start working, ego sneaks in. The blame ego that points fingers. The know-it-all ego that stops learning. The comfort zone ego that avoids risk. I had pieces of all three at different times, and every time I slipped, I stalled. When my gym sat empty for a year, I could have blamed the government. I could have envied people in the industries that stayed open. But I learned the power of taking responsibility for everything in my life, even when I felt unfair. That gave me control again. Here's the paradox. Humility doesn't make you smaller. It makes you stronger. Because when you stay real, when you keep learning, when you give back, you build something that survives storms and setbacks. But even with the right mindset, there's one thing that undo it all: the wrong people around you. You can master discipline, focus, and humility. But if you let wrong voices shape your decisions, they'll pull you off course. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they listen to opinions that don't line up with their goals. For me, this didn't mean disrespecting my family. I respect my parents deeply. I'll always value their opinions, even if I don't always follow their advice. But when it came to business decisions, I had to be careful. Family and friends give you advice from a good place, but from their own perspective. If they have never built what you're trying to build, the advice might be more about their fear than your future. When I was younger, I held onto some friendships out of loyalty because we grew up together. But I started noticing a pattern. Some people only wanted my time when it benefited them. They didn't celebrate my wins or push me to grow. That's when I realized if I kept giving all my energy to people like that, I'd have nothing left to build my future. So I shifted how I thought about relationships. I didn't cut people out to be selfish. I started protecting my energy. I leaned into relationships with people who wanted more for me, not just more from me. I listened most to mentors who had already done what I was trying to do. When I stopped giving weekly time to the wrong voices, I won back 8 to 10 hours a week. That alone let me launch a new offer that added $6,000 a month within 90 days. And here's what happens when you do that. You don't lose your family or friends. You gain perspective. You learn to filter opinions, respecting everyone, but only acting on advice that aligns with where you're going. That's how you make sure your environment fuels you instead of holding you back. If you have made it this far, you're not just watching a YouTube video. You're investing in your future. That mindset puts you ahead of 90% of the people who start but never finish. In my 20s, I thought wealth was about working harder than everyone else. By my 30s, I realized it was about building the right habits. At 40, when COVID shut down my gyms, I finally understood. Habits aren't enough. Your business has to be built on systems that work without you. Before you go, grab my free business readiness checklist. It's the quick scan I wish I had while rebuilding. Link is in the description. Then watch my other video next. How to turn your paycheck into a launchpad without gambling your security. Comment below and tell me which one of these 7 habits hit you the hardest. I read every comment. This is Grit Behind Growth, where we build real businesses with grit, not gimmicks. Let's build something real together.